Well, welcome back, folks. Today we're going to reassemble the kickstart mechanism for the SL125 project. This probably could have been done as a shop talk, part of my shop talk series, but I thought since this is fairly specific to the SL125 and small Hondas, this design of a Kickstarter, I thought I would just include it with the reassembly series of reassembly videos for the Honda. This kickstart mechanism is relatively unique, and what I mean by that is the design of the mechanism, at least in my experience, seems to be primarily a Honda design. I've never seen this style used on the other three major Japanese manufacturers, not least in my experience. This uses a tension spring right here, and we'll talk about these elements or pieces in more detail in a moment. It uses a tension spring to prevent this, or to retain this kickstart arm so it doesn't just flop around. The other three use a ball detent mechanism, that is a small ball bearing with a pressure spring behind it. I'm not sure one's superior to the other. This one I find is a little more complicated to reassemble than the ball detent design, but it's what we have. The SL70 project that I worked on, oh boy, that's probably 6-8 years ago now, had the same design. So we're going to go ahead and put this back together today. Of course, here on the right I have the two original parts that came off the 125 that have just been re-chromed, so this is fresh chrome. And over here on the left I have all new components. Of course, the kickstart rubber itself, the pad that will go on the stem eventually, the tension spring, the retainer clip, and the washer. Now this washer I have temporarily modified just a little bit by gluing a flat washer. When I say glue, I actually used blue Loctite. Attached this temporary washer to it, and you'll see why here later on when I get into the reassembly. But this washer goes between the spring and the retainer clip. Now all of these parts are still available from Honda, brand new, every one of them. You can see the bags here that they came in. So these pieces you can get all new. Of course, these are no longer serviced by Honda, but they're all overused on eBay and readily available. There's really three major components to putting this assembly back together, in my way of thinking. One is, well, the first thing I want to do, of course, is protect that fresh chrome. I don't want to damage that fresh chrome on either one of these two pieces. So that's foremost in my mind of how to handle this and protect the chrome at the same time. So handling this and securing this so that I can compress this spring and put the assembly together is the first challenge we're confronted with. The second is compressing this spring, and this is fairly stiff because you got to compress the spring. Let's dry fit this right now. The way this goes together is, the kickstart pedal itself, then the spring goes on like that. Then this flat washer, again, this has been modified a bit. We'll go over the top of that. And then this clip, this little tiny C-clip, fits into a notch right, I think you can see that notch right there. That's where that clip fits to secure the whole assembly. Now the washer right here, let me point to it for you. And again, this has been modified temporarily. This is directional, what I'm trying to get at. This little silver washer, the Honda part, this is not a Honda part, it's just a washer, is directional, and that is there's a little notch right here, I don't know if you can see that or not, that this clip eventually will fit into when it fits onto the motorcycle, or onto the stem here of the Kickstarter. And you want to make sure when you reassemble these that you get this in the proper orientation. If you get it upside down, you're going to have a problem. So compressing the spring is the second challenge that we have to confront. And then the third element, of course, is fitting this little clip down over this stem while everything is compressed appropriately. That's going to be the third challenge. That's probably not going to be terribly difficult, but we'll see here as we get into this. So in order to address those three issues, what I'm going to do is I made a little fixture. Now, originally when Honda, I'm sure, assembled these components, they had a jigger fixture of some kind. They clamped this unit into it and they, pushed everything together, either hydraulically or pneumatically, or something similar. What I first want to do is figure out a way to support this arm safely without damaging the chrome. So towards that end, I just took a piece of 2x4 block. This is just something I dug out of my scrap box, wood box bin. And I didn't have to do anything to it. It already was cut to the size. And you can see I drilled holes over the years for something else. I don't even know what that was for anymore. But what I did is I measured this stem right here and came up with a drill bit that's about that same size, and I think that's Imperial 31/64. And I just found the center of the block. As you can see there, I think with these lines from corner to corner, that's an easy way to find the center of an article. Just through cross lines. Where the lines cross is the center, and I drilled that hole with this drill bit. Then I took it over to the bandsaw and just slit it, like you can see there. The marks, those red marks, are only used to essentially key the piece so that I make sure I always get the two halves back in the same orientation, so I didn't do something like this, and not if I wasn't paying attention. So that's just an easy way to key it. I just line up the marks and I know I'm in the right spot. So the idea is that this will fit something like this. Put that in my vise and I can clamp this securely. And the second benefit to this is now I have a surface here on the bottom to bear against to compress this spring. Otherwise, you really don't have anything to bear against if you're going to try to compress that spring. So I'm going to use this boss right here on the kickstart arm to my advantage to push down against that wood, which is soft. Now this is probably fir, pine, spruce, something like that. It's a soft wood. I wanted a soft wood. I didn't want to use a piece of metal because I want to, again, protect the chrome. So I just made this little simple holder that I can put in the vise. Now to compress this spring right here so that I can get it down far enough to add this clip, I gave that some thought, and what I came up with was using one of my valve spring compressors. I have two valve spring compressors. This is my simplest and cheapest one that I have. And the idea being that once this part is clamped up inside of this block, I can use this spring compressor to slip over the top of this washer, and it'll go something like that. Now remember, the stem of this will come up through the middle here, and I'll put this all together in a few minutes and you'll see it. And then tighten against the bottom of the block like this, and I can pull that spring down to allow me to get this clip in. So I'm just going to use this simple little spring compressor. The reason I put that washer on there temporarily with blue Loctite, it gives me more bearing surface to work with, like you can see there. Otherwise I just barely would catch. You can see there you don't have much to catch against on that washer, and I wanted to make sure I had plenty of bearing surface to bear against, and I didn't want anything to slip off. The reason I use blue Loctite is it's easily removable. When I'm done, I can just gently heat it, or I can probably just snap it off. Whether it'll hold up, because I haven't done this yet, whether it'll hold up in application, I don't know, but I thought I would give it a try. Didn't want to use red Loctite because I was concerned about having to use too much heat to get it to release, and I didn't want to damage the chrome on the parts by overheating them. And again, that's just the right size. That will still allow this little clip to fit down in the middle. And when that's all done, I'll just remove that washer on the outside. So that's the theory I'm going with here. I'm going to reset up here in a minute over at the Vise, see if I can't get you some good shots of this, and we'll see if we can't put this together using these components I just talked about. When I'm all done, of course, then I'll add this rubber here to the pedal itself. By the way, pay attention to these. These are different size ends, so that opening right there is a little bigger than that one. Just something to be aware of. These are directional as well. But I'll do that after I have everything together. Let's reset up over at the Vise, and we'll see if we can't get this set up over at the bench Vise. Now you can see I got the little wood block fixture clamped real tight. That's really tight. It's not going anywhere. The boss on the bottom of the arm itself is bearing down against the wood block, so this arm can't slide through. I did put a little lubrication, a little lithium grease on the joint here where these two parts bear against each other, just to provide a little lubrication. Next part that goes on, of course, is the spring, the tension spring. To the best of my knowledge, looking at it, the spring is not directional. That is, I don't see any evidence that one side fits up or down. I don't think it makes any difference. I did a little test fit a moment ago, and as I had suspected, the blue Loctite did not hold. I think, as you can see right there. I wasn't sure the whole experiment was going to work, but we're going to go ahead and use that bearing washer in a moment. But again, remember, there's a groove right there on the inside that spring clip will fit into eventually here. So put this washer on first, then the bearing washer like that, and then we have to get the clamp in here and configure to pull down as equally as we can on that spring. Now the problem is, or a problem, is I can't pull directly straight with the clamp because it's kicked off center down below because of the shaft of the kickstart arm itself. So I'm going to go ahead here and position, and this is a little bit fiddly, as you're going to see here in just a second. Try to get everything just right. Got to pull that spring down far enough that I can get clear access to the groove. There's a groove here, of course. I don't think I mentioned that. There's a groove cut all the way around this spindle, or this end of the kickstart arm, that little snap ring fits into. So I've got to hold it in position, something like that. Take the clip and see if we can't just snap that over. See how that snapped down in there? I removed the clamp and the little tension washer, and this is partially seated, so what I'm going to do is just take a screwdriver and force that clip down into that groove all the way around. Just want to make sure that's down all the way, because you don't want it springing out on you, or you'll have parts flying all over your shop. It's down. I'm just double checking to make sure all the way around. And there you go. Now we're going to go ahead and install the kickstart rubber itself, which fits over here. Again, remember that end's a little wider than that end. This end, the wider end, goes on first. What I'm going to do is apply a little silicone grease to this shaft here. I'm going to gently heat this just to soften it up a little bit, and then we'll put this on. Well, there it is, folks, all complete. You might have noticed in that previous shot, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I'd wrapped this arm here with blue tape just to protect it as I was manhandling it around the vise. It'll mount on the bike something like that, and then pivot out to be used. Get that frame here for you, something like that, the way that will work. I'll wipe it down good and make sure there's no grease that got smeared around. And I'll just set this aside for now, waiting for the engine, right engine side cover to be mounted. So this can't go on, of course, until then. But I just thought some of you might be interested in seeing the approach I took to securing that. It's a little tricky again. You got to secure the arm, compress the spring, and then snap that snap ring over and make sure it fits down in that groove right there. Otherwise it'll go boing and you'll have parts all over the place. See a little bit of the grease right there, I'll wipe that off. That's going to be it for this video today, folks. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.